Hey, it's Alan here.
And Bree. And we are the hunter and the hippie.
Connected through yoga and bonded by our love of the wild places and the love for outdoors, we've come together to share our conversations about life.
Well, maybe more so what we've learned or are continuing to learn about life.
And there's no one way to do it. Life, that is.
And hopefully provide you with some teeny tiny bits of inspiration to connect deeper with yourself, others, and our great Mother Earth.
All right. Enough already about the podcast. Let's just get to the podcast. Awesome. Here we are.
Hey.
How are you doing, Bree? Doing good?
Yeah, I just put in for my tags for my first hunting season.
Well, that's exciting. What did you put in? So we started this conversation. You put in for antelope. Did you put in for anything else, though?
Yeah, elk and deer.
Cool.
So just because I don't know, not that I necessarily need to hunt all three, but I don't know if I'll get what I'll get.
Do you know like odds of your, like, are you like piggybacking on a friend type of thing? They like told you what to apply for?
A little bit, a little combo. I didn't do like all the breakdown of odds of drawing and getting, and harvesting and all of that. So my friend yesterday kind of walked me through the process of it. We were originally going to do a party tag for, I don't know if I'm saying that right. I'm still new to all the terms, but we were going to go in for a party draw on elk.
Yeah.
And her, all of her guy friends added her to their party draw without telling her.
That's hilarious.
So she was like, yeah, I know we were going to do this together, but I just got added to theirs and just found out about it. I'm like, okay.
That's funny.
Great. I'm going to be all by myself. No. So I did put in, I kind of mixed matched and like, I put in for certain areas where I know friends are, like for my first, second, and third, for where I know other people put in. So I have this couple who I'm friends with who, I put in for their area, and then my other friend, and then deer was really, I didn't know where to go for that. So I just looked through the maps and the units and did look a little bit at the information. But people were saying general for deer has a lot of great spots. So I just put in for one spot for deer and then one unit for deer, and my backup is general for everything, I guess. For elk and deer. So
awesome. And antelope?
Yeah, I did put in for antelope up by me because there's a couple areas that are just,
Antelope are everywhere.
I know.
Literally everywhere.
I know.
I've only been antelope hunting 1 year, but I feel like if you go antelope hunting in Wyoming and don't get an animal, like you're doing something very wrong. literally these animals are everywhere. They are so overpopulated. It is crazy.
Yeah, and before we started recording, I was saying my friend, the first tag she got was an antelope. And she was like, it's so fun. This is so fun. And then the next year she got a elk. She went out elk hunting and she's like, this is miserable. Right.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I elk hunted. I elk hunted for 2 years. Yeah, like 2, close to 3 seasons before I antelope hunted. And elk hunting, people don't understand. Like, if you've never elk hunting is hard. It is miserable. It is one of the hardest things I've ever done. And it is boring at times. It is so boring. And then we went antelope hunting. And I went antelope hunting last year. I had 3 tags. I had 2 does, so 2 females, and a buck, a male. And I got all 3 in one day.
Wow.
And it was the craziest day. Like,
Yeah.
antelope hunting is so much fun. You are like, they are everywhere. Like, literally, like, because the rule is, what they say is, if you could see an elk, if you can find an elk, you'll get it, because they're dumb.
Okay.
But the key is you can't find them. Elk.
Yeah.
That's the biggest problem with elk, is they are so hard to find, especially here in Colorado, or at least the units I hunt in Colorado, because it's so dense with pine. You just can't see them. You can't find them, or when you do, it's just too late. And with these animals, we hunted Wyoming, and it's the plains. They live in the plains, and you look around and you see antelope everywhere. And so you're just like, ooh, there's one. I'm going to go get after that. And you try to go after that, and you bust them, and they run away. And then there's like 30 others that way. And you're like, oh, all right, we'll go after those now. And you go after those. And we had the first one of the day it was like such a perfect day. It was like almost at like first light at like noon, and then like right at last light.
Yeah.
And the one at first light ran up on us. My buddy was actually going to the bathroom, and 2 antelope ran up on us. And yeah, and it's so fun. It is such a fun type of hunt. And then, yeah, you go back to elk hunting, and you're like, ugh, this sucks.
Like, it's cold, it's snowing. I'm
Yep.
sitting here. By the time I get to where
Yep. I've walked 10 miles already.
I'm sweating. Like, now I'm freezing.
Right. Yes, all of it. And there's no elk anywhere to be seen. And I'm just going to sit here in hopes that one crosses my path. And I sat here for 7 hours, and nope, one didn't cross my path. So I'm going to go 10 miles back to my tent, sleep there, and then do it again tomorrow morning.
See, that's where I'm nervous, is that if I get like an elk tag and my friends don't get it in that unit, because everyone's going to want to fill their tag, right? So I'm
You're gonna
pretty
be working
much
by yourself.
going to be, yeah, that'll be great.
You're going to be solo.
Anyone out there who...
So we need to get you a date and someone to elk hunt with.
Maybe that should be on my Bumble profile. These are the units I put in for. Will you help me?
Oh, that's funny.
I need to learn. Oh, man. It's so wild, like, being... I love that, beginner's mindset, right, is a really cool place to be, but it's so fascinating to really just be all in on something, but really clueless. I mean, not totally clueless, but just every part of the process is so new.
Yep.
And I don't know who I was telling a friend, I'm like, because I'm in school right now too, like technically in school right now for my yoga therapy program, I'm like learning more Sanskrit. So I'm like learning a new language, and then I'm trying to like learn these, like all the stuff with hunting. It just feels like too much for the brain sometimes.
Oh yeah.
Like, what am I doing?
Oh yeah. And then you're going to get out there and forget it all, and you're going to be like, what?
Yeah. That's why I even think if I don't draw I'm sure I'll get something, but I would be okay just tagging along on someone else's hunt, right? To learn and just be walked through the process. Yep. And so I don't know. It'll be interesting. Find out in like a few weeks.
Yeah. Well, if you don't get your antelope tags, you're more than welcome to join us on our antelope camp.
Yeah. Where did you guys put in for?
I'm not saying that on.
Oh, not saying that. Well,
on the mic, but
in Wyoming.
Southern.
Yeah. Okay.
So close to Laramie.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, it's a fun time.
Yeah.
It's a really good time. We camp and we go out, and you know, a lot of it is like you get in the truck and you drive, and then you get out of the truck and you try to find an antelope. That's the other thing, is like you have the truck, you have, hi Stella, you know, you have the truck, you have all the things.
Yeah.
Where like elk hunting, you typically don't have, like, you're backpacking.
Yeah.
And so it's very convenient to antelope hunt.
Yeah. I think that's where I have a little bit of an advantage with elk hunting, is
Yes.
my backpacking
100%.
ability.
Yes. 100%.
One thing I got going for me. And just, not having horses, not needing horses, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, we'll talk more as you get closer, and if you get drawn.
Oh my gosh.
If you don't have any friends, we'll
if I don't
talk.
have any friends. Thanks.
I'm hunting archery alone this year.
Okay.
One of my good friends, he was on the fence whether he was moving or not, and then I'm pretty sure they're not moving, but he didn't apply in time, so he can't hunt the unit that I'm hunting. So it's going to be interesting, because I have a very like strict plan, because I know where the elk are, or I know where they were last season. And I'm very confident they're there. It's where I got a shot on an elk, and I've seen multiple elk at this area.
Yeah.
So I'm doing it alone this year, which I'm a little nervous about. And
That'll be
it's
cool,
yeah. So it's like
experience.
5-6 miles back. So yeah, it'll be cool.
Well, if I draw an elk tag and none of my friends get the same unit, I will invite you up, and can have.
I would just love to be there to help you.
Your payment and meat, because and that's the thing, is if I do draw all three, like, that's far too much meat for me alone. So I would be giving it to my family. So
Jess and I, we're talking about vacations this year, and I think we might be coming up by you. So I was like, Bree will love to have us, and hopefully play tour guide. Show us all the cool local spots, because as much as I want to see Yellowstone, I don't want to see the Yellowstone traffic. So
there's so much, and that the park is, I mean, it's cool. There's awesome things in the park, but the wilderness around here, there's just so much that's untapped, and it's definitely a good launching point.
Yep.
Cool. Oh my gosh.
And
exciting.
You're coming here.
Yes.
Next episode. I can't believe it's already. So next episode that we're recording together in person.
Yes.
After a day of activities, we're making a day of it. I'm so excited about it.
Yeah. I know.
So yeah,
I can't believe it's already come. It's already here.
I know. I can't believe it's already June.
Yeah.
It's wild.
It's not.
It's almost June.
Well, it will be, I guess, when this comes out.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It will be when this episode comes out. It will be when that episode is middle of June, I think.
Yeah. Oh man.
So, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But all of this does have a little bit of tie into what I believe we're talking about tonight. I think we're talking about creativity.
Yes.
So I definitely think that we've gone a little off the rails, but I think that we can absolutely tie it back into it.
Us off the rails? No, never.
Never.
We never wander from topic.
No, not at all. We are 100% with staying on topic. All right, turn it over to you though.
So let's get some breathing. Let's do those breaths, man, and then we'll dive into it. So finding your comfortable seat or lying down if you'd like, and then closing your eyes or a soft gaze. If you're driving, stay safe, but still try to find a gaze where you can cultivate relaxation. And then just begin by bringing your awareness into your body. Just noticing how your body feels right now. Notice which areas of your body feel most open or soft or receptive. And which areas might feel closed off or some tension, tightness, resistance. And at first, not to change it, but just to become aware and connected. Just to be allowing of where you're at right now, even welcoming. And just knowing that where you are right now is temporary. And begin to slow down your exhale. Without struggle or strain, just slowing it down. As you continue to explore long exhales, bring awareness to just one part of the body that maybe feels the loudest, whether that's tight, tingling, tension, pain, denseness. And without labeling it, just feel it while you also feel the effects of your exhale. Feel the natural calming as you slowly breathe out. And notice if anything changes in this loud area of your body. And if it doesn't, that's okay. Or simply allowing ourselves to feel tension or tightness or resistance, while also feeling our breath relaxing, softening. They can both exist at the same time. And for your last couple breaths, you might even place your palm on this area, if you can reach it. Maybe you quietly say to yourself, it's okay that you're here. And releasing your hand. And when you're ready, gently drawing your chin towards your chest. And slowly fluttering your eyes open if they aren't already.
Thank you for that, Bree.
Yeah, thank you.
Feel good.
Should we just go to sleep now?
Yes. Yeah. Why don't you lead us through a little bit of a nidra?
We're just going to do it. Yeah.
And then that'll do it. So, creativity.
Creativity.
So.
Oh, no, I think it's funny that you suggest this topic because it's very near and dear to me, and I also have been back out of touch with my certain creative outlets that, it's recently I was like, man, I was on such a kick of really focusing and bringing it into my weeks, and then just hasn't in the last couple months. And it's been on like the top of my mind, but yeah.
What are some of your creative outlets, and what are you missing?
Well, when I moved out of Colorado into my car, it was really one of the main reasons, or one of my kind of intentions while I was on the road, was to tap back into creativity, into writing and then drawing. And I tend to fall on the analytical side. I'm very much a planner in my life, and I felt like I lost all of my creativity over the years. And growing up, I used to draw all the time. I used to write poems, and I hadn't done that in a long time, and I felt like I couldn't even do it. Like I don't know what to draw. I can't draw. And so it was a lot of that, again, that taking away the distractions and taking away this very kind of constricted mindset, like creating the freedom and space for it to show up however it was going to show up. And then this fall, I ended up getting a sketchbook and starting to finally draw again. And
nice.
Yeah, and that was really cool because it was like, how did I used to just draw for hours? And now I feel like I can't even draw. And so I had a few months where that was kind of my evening activity. It's also very much a therapeutic activity for me. So, but I haven't been drawing in the last few months. I haven't been writing poetry in the last few months. And so it's interesting to see, kind of reflect, like, why did that fade away?
Yeah, what do you think it is?
I think
it has anything to do with like time constraints, or?
I think it's a combo, because there's definitely time. Like I can still do it in the evenings. Like it is a good wind down activity. I do think it is a lot of, I'm not spending as much time in nature, just like sitting. I also am much more involved in the community than I was. I spent a lot more time by myself. And now I'm in school. I mean, I'm studying. So yeah, I guess that would be time constraint. A lot of my time, if I have like downtime, I'm watching a module or I'm writing a report. And I think there's an emotional correlation between when I'm more active with poetry and art I think this summer was really, with everything getting blasted in our face with the media, it was just pretty, it was hard to not be exposed to it. And it was...
Yep. Because everyone became a journalist.
Exactly. And I think that was where I would just like go drive out and sit in my camp chair. Be like, I gotta get away from this. And that's where, like, especially poetry is flourishes for me, is when everything else can be quiet. But I also think creativity doesn't necessarily have to be like an art form. Like it can show up in different ways.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it's definitely not, like not an art. Like I don't draw. I don't even try to draw. I mean, you know, I guess they say like if you like, oh, I can't, like I'll say I can't draw, but I guess if I practice, I could potentially learn to draw. It's not something I want to do.
Yeah.
Like I don't see myself drawing for hours. It's not enjoyable. But I did used to think that like I wasn't creative, and that may or may not have been true. I don't know, but what I realize is that we all have the opportunity to be creative. And I think what hinders creativity. So first off, you know, what you said, right? What's hindering your creativity in the sense of art and poetry right now is choices, like conscious choices that you're making. But that's a huge one, right? So we all make choices, and I think you're aware of that. I think you're probably more in tune and more aware than a lot of people that you're making those choices. And when you make a choice, you have to sacrifice something else. And right now it's, you know, it just goes back to the seasons, right? All those things that we've talked about. But right now your focus is on school and learning to hunt and, you know, all of these things that you want to do. So right now the creativity aspect is taking, you know, putting on the back burner. So I think that's a big one that hinders a lot of people's creativity, is we make choices, whether we're aware of it or not, right? But you're making a choice. You're giving up. If you love to draw and you're not drawing, or you love to play music and you're not playing music, it's because you're choosing to do something else in lieu of that. And that could be sitting on the couch watching Netflix, binging on Netflix. It could be something productive. But yeah, so I think that's a big one. I think another big hindrance of creativity is just the lie we tell ourselves is I can't be creative, or I'm not creative. And we don't allow ourselves to do it. And what I think that potentially stems from is a fear of failure, or a fear of, what do they say in Landmark? Looking good? Is that a Landmark thing?
I can't remember.
I forget.
Yeah, it is like something looking.
Right. Like, so you have this, it's not a fear of looking good. You're always trying to look good. Right. And we're always trying to look good. Right. So, you know, it could be in social media, right? We're trying to put our best selves forward. It's, you know, we're out in public, in the public eye, right? Politicians, right? There's people that get paid lots of money to help politicians always look their best. It doesn't work for some, but right, like we're always trying to look good. And I believe that one, in creativity, there's going to be times where you don't look good and you're going to fail. And failure is a very loose term, but like, you're going to fail. You're going to potentially look stupid, right? Look stupid. And you have to be okay with that. Right. And this is why I said earlier that I think our topic about you getting into hunting and what we talked about at the beginning is linked, is because you have to be willing to have that beginner mindset. Right. You have to be willing to look for something new, or right. And that's what creativity is is looking at something in a way that you've never looked at it before.
Yeah. And I think it's that a lot. There's a fear because we're constantly comparing versus just having the purity of whatever is coming to you. Maybe it is like something you've seen, but at this point there are no originals. I mean,
no.
I mean, just even in general, right? There's patterns in nature. There's things like, but that comparison gets kind of in the way, or like the judgment, and which is fascinating because when I'm doing my creative outlets, I'm not doing it to show anyone. I started to post some poetry on my website when I was writing regularly, but not all of it makes it up there. And I also, like, that's where I do actually think for me, it's like very deeply connected to emotions.
Yep.
Which even in the chakras, it's emotion and creativity. They're in the hips. It's the second chakra. But it's a lot of my processing and my outlet for emotions is through creativity, but you need to be quiet enough to feel the emotions and to see them, and also to create the space for creativity to come out however that looks. And again, I think that's like creativity can mean cooking.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just the arts. You can find creativity within sales, I'm sure, you know?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, no, and that's where, absolutely, like I've always found creativity, like that's how I've always separated myself from the rest of the pack in being a great salesperson or in business in general, is I'm always looking to use my creative outlet and tap into who I am creativity wise, because I feel like that is going to separate me from the bunch. I feel like we're so in tune and accustomed to, like, we have to fit into this mold, and in this mold, right, that's where everyone wants you to be, and I think that's a lie. I think that people have their own outlets, right, and people want to see other people in their creative spaces, and you know, the for me being in business, you know, it's always a risk, right? There's always risk to anything, but you know, there's always definitely a risk in expressing that creativity or going above and beyond, and you know, it's taking the rules of the game and bending them. Right? It's not breaking them, but it's definitely, you know, you're definitely towing the line. And yeah, it's interesting. And this is just a stupid example. In one of my jobs, I was just trying to, you know, again, just market myself better. You know, I worked for, I no longer work at this company. I work for a major corporation, and I was just trying to get my name out there. And all I did was I went to one of those custom pen websites where you can get like your name. Yeah. On a custom pen, and I was like, you know what, no one else is doing this, and I did it, and it actually helped. Like, as corny as it is, it actually helped quite a bit. Yeah. And because it gave the people that I was meeting with just a writing utensil, which in most cases a lot of people need. And I was just able to walk in and had my contact information on it, and that was it. And then in my yoga business, I've made chapstick and hand sanitizer. And my goal was to make two things that people needed. And that's always my goal with the pen. Like, I don't want to make something that you're not going to need. You know, there's so many tchotchkes out there, you know, that no, I want, right? So being in Colorado, when I was doing the chapstick, I still have tons of it left, which is funny. But when I was doing the chapstick, I was like, all right, a lot of people love outdoors. It's really dry here, and I'm gonna make sure the chapstick has SPF in it. And it was a hit. Like, it's so funny. Like, it's so weird to still see people using my chapstick.
Yeah.
And like, even like, my friends, like, I'll go to their house and I'll see like my chapstick like on their counter, and I'll like check my pocket to make sure it's not mine. And I'm like, is that oh no, all right, I must have given that. But it's right. It's to a lot of people. No one else did that with the pens. Mm-hmm. No other teachers that I know are giving out anything in their yoga classes. And for me, it's an investment, right? Being creative is an investment in me mm-hmm. and in my business and what people get from me. So utilizing that creative outlet, it's giving people something back. Mm-hmm. And people are so hesitant to spend $1. And, that's possibly the other thing is, right, like, people are so hesitant to spend some money on chapstick, on 500 tubes of chapstick. Mm. And then to think, oh, you're going to give those away for free.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm giving them away with a service that I'm providing. Mm-hmm. So.
Well, free, it's like, it's marketing, so.
Right.
That's.
And every time your lips are dry, guess who you're thinking about?
I still have one of your chapsticks. I don't ever wear chapstick, but I have one of your chapsticks, and it lives in my car for the very few times where I'm at the point of no return and have to use it.
Yeah.
I say that if my lips are getting chapped, it means I'm dehydrated. Mm-hmm. And so there are times, though, winter, mountain time, where I am massively dehydrated, wind, like all of that, where I'm just like, shoot, it's past it. I have to use chapstick now. Yeah. And I got your chapstick.
And so be confident in knowing it's beeswax. It's all natural. So I'm not all about, right, the petroleum-based chapsticks. So you'll never get a petroleum-based product from me.
Nice.
Because petroleum-based chapstick will actually make you need it more. It creates like an addictive. So it actually dries your lips out. You put it on and you think, oh, this is great. And then it actually just sucks the moisture out.
Yeah, that's what I had heard. Like, I didn't know. I thought it was all chapsticks. It was like,
no, so so the chapstick that I got is beeswax.
Okay.
So it's all natural, comes from bees. And it's great. And then it has just some SPF in it, protect the lips from getting burnt. Mm-hmm. See, I care.
You care. You're looking out for your people.
That's it.
No more chaplets. No, I think it's really interesting. One thing that I've thought a lot about with creativity and children, actually, and let me see where to start. There's so many things to spin off of here, but first off, like, as we grow older, I think we've taken in so much. Mm-hmm. And then in modern society, there's so much coming at us that, again, there's so many distractions from, like, tapping into our own creativity like that. There's, like, a purity that's there. Yeah. Right? Because you're eliminating the fear, you're eliminating the judgment, you're coming into yourself to think of something new or new to you. And I get very concerned with the amount of, just with screen time and the amount of already created content that's going into kids, because innovation comes from creativity. Yep. And right now, our kids I think they're not keeping that creativity active. Yep. Because they're just intaking. Yeah. And so I feel very concerned for our future in terms of innovation because that's not being bred. Oh,
Sorry.
we got a party over there.
Always.
That's how they feel about it. They agree.
Yes.
They're very passionate about the kids having too much screen time.
Yep.
But that's one, again, that is like, what's going to happen to innovation if we're just doing what we're told or like sitting like a blob and just taking in and not, it's not even, because it's different than output in a product, like, well, no, creativity is productive, but it's a different kind of output than like, even people who are creative for work, like work output is different than like creative play output, I guess. And I feel like innovation a lot of times comes from more of that standing in nothing, you know, like what arises when we're not taking the past or so confined to what we think things should be like, when we can like think outside of the box.
Yeah, you're so right. Like innovation happens in a few ways, right? So I think that innovation has to happen right when there's a set of constricting rules in play, and someone is brave enough to go against those rules. It's funny, like we're in this society where like we have to follow the rules and follow the law, but really, I believe like the first rule should be break all the rules. And so there's so many like type A's that are hearing this right now that are probably like, oh, don't do that. But right, like you have to think about anything that we've innovated in the last 20 years, right? Think about, right, we're in our late 30s. And when I think about cell phones in the time span that I've been alive, that you've been alive, we've gone from, let's say, the late 80s, where only rich people had cell phones. They were massive, right, into the 90s. And that trend continued. The phones got a little bit smaller. And then where we got into the later 2000s, I believe it was, right, was like 2009, I believe, was like the iPhone.
Okay.
I could be wrong, but, right. And then you have, right. And that's the thing is like Steve Jobs and Apple went beyond what they thought a cell phone should be. And they broke the rules of like what, like everyone was going, they were making cell phones smaller and smaller. And then we realized like, oh, we'll put a screen on this and, you know, we'll make this, you know, all the music that you can get, and we'll put video in your pocket. And, you know, so when you just look at the innovation of just the cell phone in the last 20 years, it came from frustration. It came from, you know, like, hey, we're going to do something different. It came from the willingness to be different and the willingness to be, you know, to potentially look stupid. And I remember there were some terrible phones in between there, right? In that evolution, I remember having some terrible cell phones at some point. But you know, like you have to get out there and experience life. And when we're staring at a screen, when our kids are staring at a screen, if you notice, my shirt choice was very intentional. So it's the year of acting like a child, and I have my Act Like a Child shirt on. And you're right. Like children are so creative, just naturally, right? Like, and I think humans are in general, but to your point, we've taken that out of ourselves as we get older. We're like, oh, I'm an adult. I'm not supposed to color, right? I'm not supposed to do, you know, the things a child would do. And as you get older, as a child, like you stop doing more and more things, and you do more and more things to act like an adult and be responsible. And I think that the ones that continue to play are the ones that continue to innovate more. and are open to. And we just lost Bree.
Sorry, I'm back. I lost you there.
Yeah, we're back. We're back. We're gonna have to edit some of that out.
I used my hotspot, and my phone, I forgot, was only at 15% and not plugged in. And I'm sitting here like, what is going on?
That's funny. I thought you just froze, so I was like, I'm just gonna keep talking because this happens before, and I'm just gonna wait till she comes back. That's too funny.
I like looked at, I was like, why is this, what's going on? And then my phone wasn't on, and I was like, oh yeah, that happened. Good thing we know how to edit.
Yes, yeah.
Okay,
Are we good?
shoot.
Are we good to go?
Well, you keep going then.
I don't know what I was talking about at this point. I was like, at one point the Zoom meeting ended, and I was just like, all right, I was like, this is the part that's gonna get cut out. We just lost Bree.
I was trying to be quiet too for GarageBand because I was like, it doesn't matter. And I'm pretty sure I was like, shit.
Yeah, that's funny.
Oh, brain's a little slow.
Like we gotta tap into our inner children too, and we have to.
Yeah.
I love, a lot of my friends limit screen time, and I love that. And there's actually apps out now. My friend, I was just at a friend's house, and they were the son. She had a 7-year-old, and out of the blue, we're just standing around talking, and it was just all the adults just standing around talking, and out of the blue, the 7-year-old comes in the kitchen and is like, "Can I take out the trash?" And I'm like, "Huh?" Like, that's weird. And she's like, she looks at her son and she's like, "Are you just trying to buy phone time?" So apparently there's this app that if they do things like take out the trash or clean their room, they earn screen time.
Okay.
And so he wanted to take out the trash, so he had earned some screen time.
Oh my God.
And there's this app on the phone. I'll have to find it and we'll put it in the show notes. But yeah, there's this app that can totally it's like a bank of screen time, and then it cuts off the screen time for the kid.
Yeah.
In the middle of it. But then I have friends who just, all right, you get it for an hour, and I think there's balance in it, right? Mm-hmm. If you look at when we were kids, we didn't have that. Mm-mm. And I think there's benefit to it, right? I think it gives access to many things, right? Well, think about what we had. We had encyclopedias, right? The most outdated material ever, right? Like by the time an encyclopedia, so for those that are young and are listening to this and don't know, we had this book, right? A through Z, books A through Z that told you about the thing that you wanted to learn about. And if you were poor, you didn't have any, and you had to go to the library and look at them, or maybe you had N that your parents bought one book, and you had, but I remember my grandparents had a set of encyclopedias, and I couldn't even tell you the copyright date on it, but it's so outdated. And, now you have access to the Google and, all the interwebs. And, so I think that there's an element of technology that helps us be more innovative and gives us access to more innovation. But I think that you're right, that we can definitely dumb down our society just by giving content, and that's it.
Yeah, I guess I'm just more weary of technology because I think most people aren't balancing it out.
Yeah.
And someone had brought up to me, well, screens, technology, computers, all of this is part of society. Like, kids are going to be behind if they're not on it and comfortable, and you're doing them a disservice by not giving them access to that.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to get it in school. Like, they're going, or their friend's house. There's plenty of opportunities for them to be exposed to it. There's far less opportunities, I think, that they're being exposed to things outside of that, because you just go into a grocery store and the mom is grocery shopping and the kid's just sitting in the cart on the screen.
Yep.
And I'm not a mom, so I can't speak to, that probably makes things a lot easier. I'm not speaking from experience, but one of my really good friends, her kids weren't allowed to watch TV, no screens, nothing until, I would say the last time I went to visit her, they were finally watching a little bit of TV. And we're sitting at the breakfast table, and I'm talking about the mountains, and I was talking about a backpacking that I did and how I was going over this pass. And she's like, can you, hold on, can you show me? And she runs into the other room, and you would automatically think they'd come back with like an iPad and have you like look up a picture of a mountain pass. And she came back with like a kind of like an Etch-a-Sketch, but not the ones with the knobs, the ones where you just like draw with your finger. And she's like, can you draw it for me? And
that's so cool.
And that's exactly like that, to see that response, right? Where it's not just like, go to the screen, go to this, like, let me like draw it out. And that's just as effective as like looking it up on an iPad. And she even said she would have her mom friends would be like, how do you get anything done without your kids watching like TV? And her response is, well, there are some days where I get far less done. But when I leave them to themselves long enough, they figure out a way to entertain themselves. And that's that creativity part. Like, she would put photos up of like these things that her kids just made out of grass or scraps and that is, I feel like, so lost in general in like modern childhood. Like when our parents like, go do whatever, and I would like take my little wagon full of dolls or whatever, I don't know what I had, and I'd go into, we had a burnt down house next door, and I just like go into the tall grass and like make a little clearing and like sit and play for hours.
Yep.
And now kids I feel like they don't know how to play.
Yeah. Or get outside. Like in our childhood, we didn't have, I had TV, but it definitely wasn't to the level that TV's at now. And there was, it was expected of us to get outside, to go play with our friends, to, like play all the sports. Like we played all the sports. I remember growing up in New York, we'd be playing football, and then like everyone would run home and grab their hockey sticks and roller blades, and then we'd be playing hockey, and like you're just constantly switching and playing, using your creativeness to get out there and just play and explore and play with bugs. And I feel like we've almost turned that into like, that's bad. Like, I don't want my kid getting dirty or, and like, well, I don't want my kid in nature. And I think that's what we're missing. And I think that also goes back to like a lot of mental health issues, especially in children. We're just, here you go. Like it's like this babysitter.
Yeah.
And, I remember as a kid, like telling my mom, oh, I'm bored. And they didn't care.
Yeah.
right? We would have to go figure it out.
Yeah. That's my dad says, he's like, I wish we gave you more opportunities to be bored.
Yeah.
Because we had a lot of activity, like, because that's the other part is like, yeah, I think it's good to have the sports and the organized activities, like in getting outside. But I think there's also beyond that, like that's still filling, right? Like filling space. Whereas like when you're bored, you're actually forced to be creative.
Yeah.
Right? Like we would play, I mean, that's
make up games.
Make believe. Yeah. You
Cops
play
and robbers.
literally make believe.
Yeah. You play house. Like,
yeah.
You know, you do all these things. You let your imagination run wild, right? It's like the Peter Pan of the, you know, of the time. And you actually do things and
build forts. Oh my gosh. It was best.
Yeah. Yeah.
Play hot lava.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. You know, there's a TV show, The Floor is Lava.
No. What?
There's, I know nothing about it. I have a friend who I think just applied to be on the show.
Oh.
But yeah, I think it's like a family, like, I don't know if you remember the show Double Dare. I think it's like something like that. It's like a family type show.
Okay.
And it's The Floor is Lava. And it's exactly what we played as kids. And right, don't touch the floor. But yeah, like, absolutely. Like we need to let our kids be bored. And it also leads to them becoming interested in other things too. I think that when you're bored, right, you'll pick up a book, right? And you're gonna read, you're gonna learn things from the book, you know, the stories that people share. And then you become interested in the things that you're reading about. Even if it's like, fiction, right? Like you still become interested in things that you read about, and, you know, you imagine what these people in these stories are doing, and you become interested in, I'd be interested in trying that. Or, I think, good.
And I think reading creates more creativity than watching a show in a sense, because you're having to imagine and like visualize, right? Versus again, it just being shown to you. Yeah. Like, this is the way it is. And like, that's what I notice a lot of kids, and I'm sure I did it too, but like, they just act as the characters of the shows they see.
Yeah.
You know, and we take that from anything, that people can act like the characters of the books, but there's still, I feel like, a little more open-ended, like, use of the brain when you read something and then interpret it or visualize it or draw it, versus like, I'm drawing exactly what I saw on the television, or I'm acting exactly like what I saw on the television. And that's, I mean, adults too, right?
It's like the difference between drawing and tracing. Right? Like, you can just trace it.
Yeah.
But all you're doing is making a copy. You're creating something that already exists.
Yeah.
Versus, you know, taking your translation of it and turning it into what you believe it should be.
Well, and then there's that fear of failure. Like, I'm going to just draw what I see or trace what I see because that's already known and that's safer. Right. And that comes, like, adults, we do the same thing, right? Well, this is how you get all the Instagram likes, so I'm just going to do this because that's the way it's, like, I'm going to not be judged or criticized or whatever. I'm just following the path that's already been laid out for me.
Yeah. Yeah, social media has done wonderful things to creativity. I'm being sarcastic.
Well, it's like you said, it's how you use it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It is definitely how you use it. But I do agree that I think, and we'd have to look up statistics, but I think that you'd have to look up statistics and see, like, what, if it's the majority, but too often you just see kids get handed an iPad. Here, get away. Go watch TV. Leave me alone. Right? It's the easy out. And, you know, we're built to take the path of least resistance, and it's our job to fight that. right? And be like, the path of least resistance is easy, but it's not fun. It doesn't create a life worth living.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, like, people want creative outlets, right? People want to do creative things. Again, I go back to just my yoga business and the classes that I teach, and I try to make it so that it's everyone's journey. Everyone's on it together.
Mm-hmm.
And that there's a level of, like, what you put into it is what you're getting out of it. Versus just, versus hot yoga where you're going to come, you're going to do 26 poses. They're going to be the same every time. And, so that's my thought on that.
Yeah. It's funny that you just brought up that example, because through what I'm studying right now, they use the same poses. I mean, you can take some out if it needs to be shorter, add some in, if it needs to be longer. It's the same sequence every time. And in one of the modules, someone had asked about that. Mm-hmm. And the response was, this is the first time you're doing that pose in this moment.
Yeah, the pose is never actually the same.
And then also the other part is is it because it's the same, do you then default to being mindless because you know what's coming, right? Yeah. And so then is that the practice of, like, keeping curiosity regardless of what seems to the mind to be monotonous? Mm-hmm. And that's, again, that beginner's mindset, like that falling off my yoga block, that clean slate or clear, like, just emptiness with everything. And yeah, so I've started to gain a little more, I mean, this is me evolving, of, like, I can understand why that kind of practice can be beneficial, and
yeah. I think ultimately it's about finding, like, the newness in the old, right? Mm-hmm. Like, there's always something to be learned. There's always something new. And in my life, I don't have a lot of, like, new activities, right? There's, jiu-jitsu, hunting, shooting my bow, lifting weights. And, it's very, if you looked at my life, like, if you were, like, TV show, like, filming my life, it would look very mundane. But it's not, right? Because I'm always looking for something new in those things, and how to make a difference. And when I started teaching yoga, my goal was to bring something different and to break the model, right? And to, we've talked about this before, but to be able to provide yoga to people who think that yoga is too hippie, or, and just help people see that, hey, there's something in it for everyone. There's something in it for you, whether you are a hippie or not.
And that's that innovation, right? It's like taking, with what you're doing with yoga, is like taking something that falls into one way, but, like, how can I bring this forward in a different way? Not in the confines of what's known. Yeah.
And I think creativity is also a muscle, right? And like any other muscle, you have to work it, right? For it to grow, for it to get bigger and stronger, you have to work it. And again, that comes back to, like, you have to be okay with that beginner mindset. You have to be okay with trying something new and falling flat on your face, and then picking yourself up and trying something different, or maybe trying the same thing, and just continuing to push through until that muscle gets stronger and stronger. And you have to be able to get past the naysayers, the people who are going to laugh in your face.
Yeah. I had something and I can't remember it now. I gotta get my note. I gotta start taking notes. I know. I try not to.
I don't have my journal today.
Oh man.
But I think that there's also other things that you can do. For me, anyway, how like I stem my creativity is I have to be active, and like when I'm not, and this goes into even looking for like new solutions to things. If you're trying to find like solutions to a problem, or you're trying to just find a new way to do something. When I used to run, I used to get a lot of like my answers running.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, you could probably speak to this. Like I'd be out there running, like, I'd have something going on at work, and I'd be like, I'm going to run at lunch. I'd go for a run. And as I'm running, I'm like, oh shit, I got it. Right. Like that's the answer. And like, you want to like turn around and like run back home. But then you're like, oh, this is the mojo. This is like the creative juices, getting them flowing. And, what else am I going to come up with? And I don't run anymore. But it's the same for, jiu-jitsu and lifting weights, hiking. Like when you're out there on the trail hiking and you're exerting your energy and, your focus on something, you typically will start to get your creative juices flowing. I have an idea for a children's series of books, and it always hits me when I'm hiking, and it has to do with like nature and outdoors for kids, but it always hits me when I'm hiking, and I always have these ideas. So like I can't wait to get back to like the car to write down my ideas about this series of children books that I will eventually one day publish.
But I would debate here that it's the active part could be a part of it, but I actually think it's when you're doing those activities, you've eliminated like intake, right? So you're stepping away, right? You go for a run, unless you're running with a podcast or music, you're taking in nature, but there's not this like overstimulation. And so you're actually freeing space for these things to kind of pop up in your mind. Same thing with hiking. When I like was on the John Muir Trail, which was, I had my phone with me, but no service. Like I used it for photos, and I did like a video documentation of every day, like a report instead of writing. And it was so fascinating because I had all these like genius ideas while I was out there, but it's because there was no, yes, I'm taking in the scenery, but you're out there for so long without anything other kind of intake that it clears the mind. It slows the mind down to like allow what's in there to actually surface versus just processing.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And like you get tasked with doing something else, right? Like you don't have, right, you're processing, but you also don't have time to think about the children's book. Cause like, honestly, like I'm saying it here now, this is the first time I've thought about it, not on the trail.
Yeah.
And, so yeah, there's definitely something to it. We're constantly taking in, and we have to respond to it, and we have to react to it. And whether that be our jobs or our kids. I think you have a really valid point there.
And that's where I'm thinking is like right now when I was, at the beginning of the episode, I mentioned, I'm like, I haven't been creative, doing writing, poetry. I haven't been drawing at all, but mainly the writing part is because drawing was just something I brought back into my life. And I was like, it's because I've had a lot more work lately, which I get to be creative in that. There's no question about it, but it's different again when it's a means to, when it's creativity for like purpose versus creativity just for the sake of creativity. I think it's two different things. And I've been working a lot, and then back on the dating scene, you know, like that's taking up time. And so I'm not giving myself the space that's just clearing all the intake to allow other things to surface.
Yeah.
And I've been listening to more music. I think we talked about this in a past episode, or maybe we talked it separately, but one of the shamans that I read her books, she even talked about like just have times where you're not listening to music, where you're doing things and not listening to it. And I think music can induce creativity, inspire creativity. Like I'm all about it. I see how it affects me and my mood and can cultivate certain energies, but I can see it's thinking for you, right? So you just humming a song because it's quiet is creativity, right? Versus something else is creating this for me.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's like another thing. I've just been listening to a lot more music, like when I'm cooking, and I used to I still do, but far less lately, you know? And so I'm just in a different phase of intake, I guess. But
yeah. And I said this earlier, I think it goes through seasons, right? And of like what you're intaking. And I also, I don't know if you've ever heard the thought or right, like to become a better writer, you need to read more. Right. So like you want to read what other people are writing, and to enhance your vocabulary, to enhance your, cognitive abilities in writing. And so I think that there's definitely a level of like you have to consume to be able to put out. But I think what we're hitting on here is like you have to also be able to pause. What I noticed, I love reading, but I read nonfiction. And what I noticed was at one point I was reading too much. And I was taking so much in, and I just had nothing. I couldn't do anything with it. Right? I was just overwhelming myself with all sorts of knowledge about sales and self-improvement and, endurance racing and all sorts of things. And sometimes I think we just take too much in. We have to be bored.
Yeah.
Right? It goes back to, well, what if I don't have that? What if I am not listening to the podcast or the book well, try it. Right? See what happens.
Yeah.
See where, right, instead of going into this mode of just constantly consuming something, see where your mind goes and what creativity mechanisms start to come into play.
No, that's spot on. I mean, I just have time. I don't have a TV. And I actually haven't really been watching anything on my laptop lately, but I just have times where I just sit and stare, and it's because I'm just like letting the mind do its thing, right?
Yep.
So there's a period of like busyness of the mind, and then maybe once that's all cleared, then stuff starts to arise. And so again, when I'm in periods where I don't give myself the space to do that, and so I'm filling that sitting, staring off into nowhere with my phone, which I'm not perfect by any means, and I go through periods where I'm far more on my phone and then I catch myself and I'm like, okay, like I need to commit to giving my brain the space to not just be stimulated constantly.
Yeah.
And again, why are we so exhausted? It's because we're not giving our brains any downtime. Our downtime is filled with activity when we're on the phone.
Yeah. Yeah. I just had a thought, like, as we're just talking through this, think about like the things that you want to do in life, right? The things that you want to accomplish. And maybe it's start a business. Maybe it's, start a new hobby. and those things come to us in our like downtime, in that moment where we're not taking something in. We start to aspire to do things, and what usually stops us from getting to those things is all of the other intake that we get, right? Like, and it's typically other people's agendas. And granted, if you have kids, right, like, yeah, it's the agenda of your kids, but you're still being removed from that moment of what you want. You're still being taken away from trying to accomplish the things that you aspire to be. So I think, like, you ultimately have to take the time for yourself, right? To, hey, this is what I want to be, and I need to go and create that thing, versus just consuming more. Like, once you have the idea, you have to take action and run with it. And I think that's where we're losing a lot of, a lot of what we could be, right? Like, who we are and who we could potentially be in this world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and think about when you've got something you're sorting through and you sleep and you like wake up with like a new idea or a solution. Like, where is that coming from? It's the fact that you've been able to like quiet the mind. You've been able to like slow things down. You're no longer taking in, your brain's given the space to do what it does.
Yeah.
And it's like we have an overload because of experience. And again, that coming back to children, like they don't have all these experiences like bogging them down or telling them one way or another. They're just acting on impulse or just super present. Mm-hmm. And they're present to like, whoa, whatever comes up. And it's, they say the funniest things, and it's, and that's again, what scares me is just like taking that away from them by at a young age, just like dependence on input versus that purity and in whatever arises.
Yeah. And like telling them, hey, you can't do that. You have to stop playing games. You have to commit to this. Or, to your point, your dad said he wishes more time to be bored. Like, we want our children to be amazing people, but what are we doing to them by putting them in every single sport and musical instrument and I think a lot of people might hear this and be like, well, look at the world. The world's fine, right? Like, we're turning people into doctors and making millions of dollars. And it's not about making millions of dollars, right? Like, yeah, that's a great aspiration to have. And, right. Like, who are you going to become in order to earn $1 million? But I think that we've become focused really a lot on the materialism, and we've lost nature. And when you even talk to family members or friends that just don't understand, how important it is to get out and, play and have fun versus, New Yorkers who are constantly working all the time. They're working to live, or they're living to work. I don't remember how the saying goes, but I have tons of family still in New York, and they're working 10, 12-hour days to live in apartments with 5 roommates that they still can't afford their rent. And, they just drink their night away, and then they wake up in the morning and they, lather, rinse, repeat type of thing. And they just continue to repeat that repetitive cycle. And then we end up with all sorts of mental health issues and tons of problems in our society.
Yeah. I remember those days. Oh man.
It's rough. Like
It is.
living that life of, to just to make money. And again, money is great. Like anyone that says, "Oh, money can't buy you happiness," that's a lie. Right? Like first off, you should find happiness internally, and money's a tool and it's a magnifier. Right? It's going to make you more of who you are. Right? So if you have more money, you're just going to be, if you're an asshole, you're going to be more of an asshole. And if you have more money and you're creative, you're going to be more creative. So money is simply a tool, and it's a great tool to, but that's all it is it's a tool. It's not going to give you happiness. It's not going to buy you happiness. And sure, it's much better and easier to focus on life when your rent is paid for, your mortgage is paid for. But if you have no hours left in the day because that's all you're focused on, I think that's where we start running into problems.
Yeah, I don't know. It's the dichotomy of choice.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes money gives you more choices, which creates more suffering in the sense of if we don't have our self-awareness or growth and development and reflection like dialed in, it's a slippery slope because you then, and it's not necessarily the money, but then the more that you have, the more that you want. And then one of my teachers said about like suffering is what we want, what we don't have, and when we have it, we're afraid of losing it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so money creates the means to have more, but then you're so afraid of losing that money or losing what you have from that money that you can't even enjoy it.
Yeah.
And so I agree. I think it all magnifies, but I do think people who aren't jerks, but aren't dialed into themselves in their areas of, where they have opportunities, they can easily fall into that trap.
Yeah.
Of getting more than wanting more, and then
the
fear of losing it all. And I guess I used to make a lot of money I guess not a lot of money. I look at it now as like, whoa, I can't believe I made that much money. But I had a really well-paying job when I worked in like growing startups and in the corporate or worked in business operations. I make like a quarter or a third of what I used to make then, and I'm so much happier.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is just a shift in my own path in general, but also when money's not involved, you're doing, or when you can do things because you like for the love of it, or I don't know. Like, okay, here's a good example. With startups being the cool thing to do, I was living in Venice Beach, and everyone wants to be an entrepreneur, and everyone wants to be the next, Silicon Beach, so the next Mark Zuckerberg, right? And so people were creating these ideas not because they were trying to solve a problem, not because they were passionate about it, but because they wanted to make money. And those aren't successful.
Nope.
Like when the end goal is because you want to make money or you want to be like have fame, it's not going to drive it, right? Like and they even say like entrepreneurs who like solved like even one of their own problems, or again, you have the passion. Not that that's 100% going to make you successful, but you'll have far more success when that's the driving force versus money being the driving force.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's the same that goes on social media, right? Like for the people who are just trying to get Insta famous or, get likes, and, that do something worthwhile, right? If you do something worthwhile, you're going to create a following. If you do something that you're happy doing, right? Versus just posting 900 selfies of yourself, right? Like you're not going to get Insta famous. I mean, some people have had success with it, right? With just showing off their bodies but I'd say that's far and few between. I think it's about creating a life that you want to live, that you're passionate about, and then sharing it with other people. And that's what makes some of these really, famous, social media people famous, is that they're just sharing their passion at that point.
Well, and there's like people who are Insta famous because they do the selfies and they show off their body, but then what? What do they have? What happens if Instagram is no longer relevant? Where are they? What do they have to fall back on? They're crushed. I mean, I laugh only because like a kid I nannied for, who's in the generation of all this social media, like she's got far more followers than I do. And not because just because like everybody her age is on it and following and liking and doing that, it's like, I'm like, well, you got 300 likes, man. Like, I was like,
what does that mean? What does that even mean? Right?
No, and that's the thing is like, I'm giving up. I'm just like, oh.
And it goes back to like the reason we created this, right? Like this is just us being creative in the sense of we are having, right? Like we were having conversations and we're like, oh, we should just start recording these. Like, right? Like I think that people would want to hear these not because we have anything cool to say, but simply because I think what we think other people think or other people think about. And people just want to hear other people's thoughts and opinions. And this is never, right, like it's the same reason, right, we've talked about this, is why we don't have sponsors. And, right, we're not doing this to, like, yeah, if we get to the status of Joe Rogan, great, right? But that isn't, we weren't like, hey, Brie, we need to start a podcast so we can become like Joe Rogan, right? Or become like any other huge podcaster, right? It was like, hey, let's just start recording. Like, I think it was literally just, hey, we should start recording these conversations.
Yeah. Well, and it's real people. Like we have no, again, agenda. We're not trying to appease any specific group. We're talking authentically and about things that are interesting to us, that we're passionate about, and hopefully like exposing different perspectives and really like the good, what I think our intention is to show people it doesn't have to look one way, and that we're dynamic as humans, and we forgot in that.
Can we talk real quick about women on social media versus men on social media?
Sure.
I feel like I'm going to get a bunch of hate. I know this by saying this, but like, I feel like when you look at like men on social media, and again, I'm being very, encompassing of everyone, being very generalized here. But when you look at men on social media, like if it's like a selfie or like video of like, them telling a story or something, it's like the head, like collarbone up. Okay. Right. And like, there's like some space at the top, sort of like how like you and I are on camera right now. Right? Like I'm a little bit zoomed out of my camera, and like you're right. Like I would say that your positioning is very like male-esque compared to like what I'm seeing compared to female. But like females, the head is always at the top of the screen. The boobs are always in the screen. The cleavage is always showing. Like even
I don't
like
know who you follow. I don't see a lot of cleave.
No.
Jeez.
So like yeah. So like a lot of like fitness, right? So like I'm following like a lot of fitness type stuff, both men and women. But I swear, and like even kids, like kids. When I say kids, I mean like in their 20s, right? I noticed that a lot of the men, it's like this. If you're on video, like I'm trying to show you, whereas like the women, it's very much like squeeze the arms together, like try to make as much.
If I ever take a photo like that, you are banning me from Instagram.
All right, deal. I will definitely be like, Brie, what the hell are you doing?
I do have some sports bra pics, but they are conservative. Okay, it's more of just because I'm running and
right, and I feel like I don't know, and maybe I'm wrong here, but I always feel like it's like this high angle, shooting down. Yeah,
gotta look good for that gram. Mm-hmm. Gotta get those likes because they're paying my bills.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I think it's why I'm so anti posting yoga photos on my Instagram.
I also follow a lot of yoga people. Yes, and there's a lot of that.
Because it's like I'm gonna wear booty shorts and a sports bra and take a photo do dancer's pose by a lake. And that's going to get likes. But what are those likes doing? Yeah, it's marketing, right? So now they're going to see more of your page. And so when you put something up that you're selling, great. Like, I see the means to the end, but like, I just can't do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just don't have it in me.
If I had boobs, I'd totally do it.
See? Then why are you asking this question?
No, I'm totally joking. I would not. I feel like, and right, like to each their own. I'm not being judgmental at all. It might sound like I'm being judgmental, but I'm not. And like to each their own. But for me, like leave some mystery in it, and like, you know, like have. I'm not saying you don't have respect for yourself and your body, but like if that's what's getting you the likes, and if that's what it takes to get you the likes, again, I go back to like, do something worthwhile. Mm-hmm. Right? Don't try to, I mean, unless you're a model, and if that's what you're trying to be, but that's the other thing is, right? Just like how social media has turned everyone into journalists, social media has turned everyone to models. Oh yeah. Oh, I'm an Instagram model, and like there's like these movies on Netflix, like all these men and women, both. I forget the name of it, but I watched one with my wife recently where it was like men and women both just showing, you know, leaving nothing for mystery. Mm-hmm. And maybe I'm just old school in my thinking in that, but
yeah, I feel like devil's advocate would say like, use your femininity, like use your sex sells, you know, and sex does sell. Sex sells, and as long as it's being bought, like, I guess, you know, and I personally fall on your side of that's not authentic to me. Like, I could do that. Yeah, I could do that. Right. I could put that stuff up. It doesn't represent what I want. It's not, it's putting validation on the external. It's, you're also personally becoming, and I don't know, I'm sure there's very enlightened people who have super sexy bodies and show them off. Like, I'm not saying one is mutually exclusive of the other, but I just would say, like, be very sure that you're not deeply identified with that photo or whoever that person is, because if that gets taken from you, where are you then?
Yeah.
What do you have then?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like, don't be afraid not to share your super sexy body. Like, hell yeah, if you got a super sexy body, share the hell out of it. Like, yeah, be proud. Like, that takes work. But you hit the nail on the head, right? Like, that should not be your identity.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And don't let that be your identity. So I think that's a really good point that you made.
And I think there's people, it's been cool, that use those photos, they bring people in, and then they share really like meaningful posts or the reality behind the photo, or, there's definitely avenues for it. But I mean, it is very true that, yeah, who knows what's first, chicken or the egg? Did social media bring this out of people and move people towards it? Or did that already exist in people and it just gave them the platform to show their true colors?
Yeah.
A little bit of both.
Yeah. And well, if you think about, right, there's this book by Jonathon Haidt, The Coddling of the American Mind. And he talks a lot about the impact that social media has had, especially on teenage girls. Right, like I think it's safe to say that, like, we all know that teenage girls all have all sorts of body image issues. And I think that, and I can't speak for you, but I think that's pretty much runs the gamut. Like, if you were a teenage girl, like, you had body image issues. Whether you ended up with any sort of disorder with that is something, or like totally different topic. But I think that, as a teenage girl, like, you've had some sort of body image issues, too fat, too skinny, too tall, too whatever, right? And I think in this book, The Coddling of the American Mind, Jonathon Haidt, he's a psychologist, and he's done all the research. I don't think he's done the research. There's definitely been a lot of research done that since we've had social media, suicide rates have increased substantially. And in the most significant population that we've seen it in is in teenage girls. And it's sad, and it's right. It goes back to, right, like, yeah, like, if you have it, flaunt it, right? Sex sells, and right, no one's judging you, no one's victim blaming you, no one's slut shaming you, right? Like, that's not it. But there is a there's a consequence to every action. And then people hear the word consequence, like, think that that's bad. Consequence is just like something that happens based off of something you do, right? It doesn't have to be bad, right? So if you do something else is going to happen. It's the laws of physics, right? For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And for every woman that comes on social media and is flaunting what she has and creating, there's possibly the opportunity to create more body image issues in teenage girls that have the opportunity to view this. So it's this double-edged sword of, yeah, use your creativity for what you got and flaunt it if you got it, and sex sells, but what damage are we doing to society overall? And how is that impacting everyone as a whole?
Oh man, that's like a whole episode right there.
No, that's deep.
This might have to shoot. Yeah, it's complicated.
I think that's a good point to wrap, though. I don't know what you're...
Yeah, I think it kind of gives me stuff to think. Like, I would love to kind of dive into that, commit to a whole episode just around even just all the social media impacts. Yeah.
That'd be a great topic.
We're ending on a really heavy note.
We are. We normally don't do that.
So journal about it. Journal prompt.
Yeah, so use your journal as the tool that it is. Ending on a heavy note, like, if you are a teenage girl and you're listening to this, if you're the mother or the father to teenage girls, if you're hearing this and thinking, or you're like, what? Women have body image issues? Like, if you don't know this already, talk to a woman in your life. I think you will be very shocked. And I would be almost confident in even making a bet to say 100% of women have had some sort of body image issues. I could be wrong, but like I'm willing to go that far with it. And so if you are unaware of this, right, maybe write about that, or write about why you think that's wrong, or maybe write about what you're going to do to talk about that with a woman in your life. But that wasn't what the episode was about. The episode's about using your creativity, and your journal's a great place for your creativity, right? Mm-hmm. It's a great place to disconnect from like everything that we talked about with intaking, right? Your journal is your output. Mm-hmm. Right? You can use your journal as intake, as I've talked about before, where you go back and you reflect on what you've written about. But in the moment when you're writing in your journal, turn off the music, right? Turn off all the distractions and use this as the tool that it is to just get out what you need to. And this is why I always take my journal with me, because I've mentioned it before in this episode, like, hey, when I'm hiking, all these ideas start coming to mind and I don't want to forget about these. So I start writing. When after jiu-jitsu, I have a journal for my jiu-jitsu bag that I write in. And a lot of it's about training, but I also start to see more opportunities in my jiu-jitsu. So whatever outlets you have, maybe you're creative and you're using your art, use your journal as an art, like as a sketch pad. Mm-hmm. Even if it has lines, quit forming to this like shape, this like you have to fit in this square box. You can draw on line paper or get a sketchbook. Some people journal with images, so use it. There's no rules to this. Quit being an adult. Quit letting all of your past experiences dictate what this is supposed to look like, and really just enjoy the opportunity to use your journal as this opportunity to get it all out there, and then see what comes out. Take some action.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for joining.
Yeah.
It was so good talking to you.
Thank you. And I'll see you in person next time.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh.
That's going to be a fun one. See you,
awesome. See ya. If you want to follow us and our adventures, you can find both of us on Instagram. I'm at Bree Allison. That's BreAllison.
And I am at The Life of Alan Tatone, _ between each word. To check out our offerings, yoga, one-on-one trainings, workshops, retreats, and a recorded library, you can find the info on our website, thehunterandthehippie.com.
If you have questions for the podcast, about the podcast, feedback, suggestions, or just want to say hi or find ways to work with us, our email is thehunterandthehippie@gmail.com. And don't worry, all of this will be in our show notes.
Thanks for tuning in.
Hopefully you weren't tuned out.
To the Hunter and the Hippie podcast.